How do you handle Philadelphia Eagles in drafts right now with Jalen Hurts appearing to take over? Are FFPC players selecting Nick Chubb a little too high? And is one tight end breakout candidate destined to be a 2021 bust? Plus, the 2020-2021 world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge $500,000 grand prize winner Stephen Ranaghan drops by to talk about his third six-figure title in the last 3 years and what he thinks about Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Carson Wentz, and much more for 2021 drafts. We've got a great show for you. Farrell Elliott is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now listening to the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by MyFFPC.com, with your hosts Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here's Eric Balkman and Farrell Elliott.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Quiet Hollers. Remember to check out the Quiet Hollers music at quiethollers.com. Greetings and salutations to all of the Balkaholics and Farrelliacs tuning in this week on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Welcome to our latest episode. It's presented by MyFFPC.com. I am, as always, your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the definitive commissioner, Farrell Elliott. And Farrell, I got to tell you right now, just in case, forewarning you, my wife decided to have a girls' weekend this weekend, so she went up the highway, a good 30, 35 miles, to the city of the title town, the city of Packers. It is Green Bay. She is spending the weekend up there. So if my kids interrupt me in the middle of the show, they're fast asleep right now, but if they interrupt me, I'm going to hand you the reins for a couple of minutes. Is that suitable to you, good sir?
Oh, I will take the reins and no telling where I could go. I wish I had that forewarning about that girls' weekend because, you know, I know Mrs. Baldwin has some very, very nice friends, some of them which might even be single. So, you know, but that's a whole other conversation. So,
well, it's a conversation we could have off the air. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah. We'll figure it all out. I'm very excited to do the show with you tonight because we are going to wax poetic on the Steelers' precarious quarterback situation, whether Austin Eckler should be going much higher than he is in FFPC drafts, and Stephen Ranaghan is going to drop in roughly 12 minutes or so to tell us all about how he won the $500,000 in the FFPC Playoff Challenge and what he plans on spending the money on. And clearly, you know, Farrell, this is so unique because, and we'll get into this more when we get Stephen on, but this is the first time ever in HSFFR history, almost 500 episodes, we have had a guy come on, or a woman, any player, come on winning a six-figure grand prize 2 years ago, a six-figure grand prize last year, and a six-figure grand prize again this year. Insane run that Stephen Ranaghan is on. And I would think that if we can do it the right way, we are going to knock more knowledge out of his head tonight to the listeners than we ever have before.
That's incredible, and I want to find out what his recipe is. I've looked at some of the lineups, or at least one of the lineups that he put in the league, and I have one question, and my lead question that I'm very much looking forward to asking, and I hope it can. It needs to enlighten me because I've never done very well in these contests. You know, you can only win so many $35 teams. I'm winning some, you know. Yeah.
I get it. I just, I think to get life-changing money once is pretty incredible. And I know, well, we'll get it when Stephen comes on. We'll talk. I think he had a very, very interesting Super Bowl, and we'll leave it at that. We'll let him tell the rest of the story. Shout out to the chat room right now. Feel free to post any questions you all might have in there. At Twitter, you can connect with the show at HSFFR, at Eric Balkman. As always, check out KFFSC.com. That's KFFSC.com. That's the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship that Farrell runs. Always a good contest. Love competing in it every single year. The Facebook page for the HSFF Hour is facebook.com/HSFF Hour. 347-426-3682 is the phone number. 347-GAME-OVA. highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com is the email box that my best friend and audio engineer Bryce is monitoring, as well as our mutual friend Rob and producer Rob, is monitoring as well. They are working very hard on that. We'll try to get to more emails this week. I know we didn't get to a ton last week. We'll try to get to more of them this week coming up later on in the show. All right, so a couple of things we want to point out. Obviously, the 2021 best ball drafts are open with the FFPC, myffpc.com. In fact, if you want to jump in an FFPC draft right now, number 26816, that's 26816. I believe it's just over half full. Farrell is in that one. You can beat him. It is a $250 classic slow draft. You can compete against him in that right now. Dynasty Orphans available also. myffpc.com/dynasty for sale. Those orphans are running out too. I was looking at that again yesterday, and we're getting fewer and fewer orphans on there. So if you want to get a good deal on a good orphan team, make sure you're getting on over to myffpc.com/dynasty for sale. All right, let's get into the hard news here. I want to thank Football Guys, Draft Sharks, Roto World, and Rob for tonight's Fantasy Flash. Let's talk about the big NFL news of the week. The Colts and Eagles hooked up on a trade. Colts acquiring quarterback Carson Wentz from Philadelphia. They gave up a 2021 third-round pick and a conditional 2022 second-round pick, which could turn into a first-round pick, according to Adam Schefter on Twitter. Now, it does turn into a first-rounder if Wentz plays 75% of the Colts snaps or 70% and the Colts make the playoffs. The Eagles are taking on nearly a $34 million dead money cap hit. That's the largest number in NFL history for one singular player. Now, Howie Roseman, who is the GM of Philadelphia, said apparently wanted multiple first-round picks for this, according to sources. Did not get it. He got the best offer on the table. I don't know how interested the Bears were. We heard some reports that they may not have even offered anything to Philadelphia, and it could have been the Colts just bidding against themselves. Carson Wentz in 2020 led the NFL in fumbles, interceptions, sacks taken, and was benched after just 12 games. He's only 28 years old, but he's going to have the opportunity to go back to his old offensive coordinator, Frank Reich, and hopefully recapture the magic that had him as an MVP candidate a few years ago until he had that devastating knee injury. So first, Farrell, let's just talk about it from the Colts standpoint. Wentz to Indianapolis, your thoughts on how this affects guys like T.Y. Hilton if he's back there next year, Michael Pittman, who will be back there next year. You have Paris Campbell. Good offensive line, good running game. Seems to be a situation where Wentz is really set up to succeed.
And he will succeed. You know, you talk about his 2020 year, and I go back to some of the shows we did through the season, Balky, and you look at the individuals that Carson Wentz was on the field with, and you also get an understanding of what's been going on in that locker room and the coach and the problem with the owner and the general manager, which makes a lot of mistakes. You know, Hallie's got some answering to do with the mathematics of the salary cap on this deal. But the Philadelphia situation, they could not stand prosperity in the city of brotherly love, and nobody had any love for Carson Wentz. So this is a great, great thing for him. He goes to a team, and, you know, we looked at coach of the Cleveland Browns winning the Coach of the Year in the NFL, Stefanski, but I argue that the Coach of the Year was Frank Reich. Frank has put together a team that absolutely hates to lose and thinks they should always win. They're blue-collar. They're hardworking. He's surrounded himself with coaches that are that way. The general manager is that same personality, comes out of Kansas City. The new offensive coordinator is Marcus Brady, a guy that played quarterback for 6 years in the CFL. The quarterback coach is Scott Milanovich, who came out of Maryland, coached in the CFL, played in the CFL. You put these two guys together, they played 10 years in the league, maybe threw 150 passes total in all of their play. But they're hardworking guys that know football, and they are, joining with Frank Reich, the natural coach for this player. So what does this player do very, very well? He throws the ball off the rollout. Designed rollouts, different than what Mahomes does, but it looks a lot of the same way, especially when he's rolling away from the pass rush. So it's going to elevate all of the Indianapolis Colts, and it's going to elevate selected Colts better. You know, Phillip Rivers, his thing was to stand in the pocket and read all of the pass patterns. So you had multiple receivers that could catch the ball in any pattern. He would see somebody open and wouldn't release it. Carson Wentz has a quick release, ever since he came in the league. That's when you talk about except for his rookie year, he never even hit double-digit interceptions. So he's accurate while moving around with his feet. Elevate T.Y. Hilton. I'm already seeing it in the drafts I'm in. He's moving up to late single digits. Elevate Michael Pittman. You know, when a quarterback can extend the play, T.Y. Hilton is better at getting open than most of all receivers in the league. And this quarterback will extend the play. Michael Pittman will get separation. So with the play extended, he gets more separation. And a sleeper that I really, really like for where we're going here is the tight end Mo Alley Cox. I mean, this kid couldn't help. You know, he's 6'6", he's from Virginia. They put a basketball in his hand. He couldn't help that. You know, but he's a football player that has now matured, and the Colts have invested in him. And finally, they're in a situation to get payback on that investment. I could continue to talk about how natural this deal is for Carson Wentz. He's a blue-collar kid coming to a blue-collar team in a blue-collar town whose damn jersey is blue. It doesn't get any better than this. We gave the play for the fantasy guys, for the guys that may wander into the sports book when they head to the FFPC in the desert and play in Las Vegas. If it holds the way it is now, the Indianapolis Colts are 11-1 to win the AFC championship. And, Balky, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if they're going to win the AFC, but they're going to be in the title game. So I'm telling you to make your way to the sportsbook and get that done.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because I think the defense is improving. They have some pieces. Their offensive line is obviously awesome. The running game is fantastic. We'll see with Wentz. I mean, if he does rebound at all, it's going to be a huge boon for Indy. From a fantasy standpoint, you know, the T.Y. Hilton's an unrestricted free agent right now. They have Zach Pascal, who's a restricted free agent. Really, the only guys of note that are under contract from the wide receivers are Pittman and Paris Campbell. So your call on Mo Alley Cox could prove to be pretty huge, especially when you consider that he's pretty much free right now in FFPC drafts. Tight end 47 going in the 26th round of best ball leagues, and you can get him essentially super late. This is Brevin Jordan, Drew Sample, Hunter Long, Devin Asiasi territory where you can get Mo Alley Cox. So take Farrell's advice, grab him a couple of rounds before that to ensure you have him on your roster. Flip side of the trade, Farrell, Adam Schefter, Chris Mortensen say the Eagles are likely to turn to Jalen Hurts, but there's probably going to be some competition brought in to Philadelphia to see what they do at their starting quarterback position. 2020 second rounder was Hurts. He obviously came on late in the season when Wentz was benched and played pretty well. Obviously offered a dose of a running game attack that Wentz either couldn't do or wouldn't do after his injury. But Hurts looked great last year. They have the number 6 overall pick in the draft, does the Philadelphia Eagles. They still could take a quarterback there. And then obviously you would imagine that Hurts would be more of a bridge quarterback to whoever they draft at 6. So just looking at the Philadelphia offense right now, I know it's kind of a mess. Kern Reeve is asking, you know, what's going to happen with Zach Ertz. I don't know if they're going to be able to get a trade. I think he is eventually going to be released given the cap situation. We already saw them release Deshaun Jackson. Alshon Jeffrey's probably going to be released here shortly. It's Miles Sanders. It's Jalen Reagor. You know, outside of that, there's not a whole lot to get excited about from Philly. Are you looking at anybody in drafts right now from Philadelphia not named Miles Sanders with Jalen Hurts taking over, potentially only for a couple of months if they do draft somebody in the first round?
Loaded question, Balky, and a good question. You know, I saw performances that I really, really liked from overachieving players. It was great to watch from a football perspective. And in some ways, we could take advantage from a fantasy perspective in that. I had a couple good games out of the big receiver Fulgham, and he can be a spot play for you. But no, you referred to Richard Rodgers, who had a couple of good games as a catch it and fall down tight end. And Boston Scott is a great complementary player, and he loves to play against the Giants. I call him the Giant Killer. But he is not. He's not. And I point this out because these were the kind of players that were on the field with Carson Wentz. Now, Jalen Hurts, first at Alabama and then at Oklahoma. So you've got a player. I don't know of any player in college ball who was ever under a more scrutinizing microscope than this player. And then he goes in the second round. If you drafted him in the second round, if you're the general manager who did that, you're going to need to commit to him. And so when he went to Oklahoma, there was some leadership skills, type A personality, big voice in the locker room. This is the kind of player that's only going to that your team's only going to be successful if he's on it and he's playing. You're not going to be successful because it's going to be a divided locker room with two quarterbacks. This is the kind of kid that's not going to meld with another quarterback, especially another young draft quarterback. That would be a disaster in my mind. So I want to see what happens in the draft. If the Eagles draft another quarterback, I'm actually running away from all Eagles, except maybe the running backs.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have some clarity here, and I think to have a guy that you took in the second round last year competing against the guy you're taking sixth overall this year, that doesn't offer a lot of clarity, and especially with the new head coach there, that might be a must-avoid offense right now. The only guy, I mean, and Kern pointed this out in the chat room too, Dallas Goddard is certainly worth our time. Dallas Goddard going off as the tight end 7 right now at the 6'10" in FFPC drafts might be a little bit too rich for my blood, given what we know with Philadelphia right now. Miles Sanders currently is going as the running back 17 at the 304. This was a guy we saw last year going as high as the 101. Granted, that was Two-Packer doing that in the Football Guys draft. But still, he went as high as the 101 that I've seen. Running back 17 this year, maybe there's some value there. I don't know. We got to flesh that out. That's Antonio Gibson, Joe Mixon, James Robinson, CEH territory is where Sanders is going right now. So we'll be following that situation. Hey, we have $500,000 FFPC Playoff Challenge winner Stephen Ranaghan coming up in just 1 minute here. Before we get to him, one last thing I want to bring up, as long as we're on the subject of quarterbacks. Kevin Colbert, the GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers, said he has to, quote, look at this current cap situation when he was asked about Ben Roethlisberger being the starting quarterback again in 2021. Brooke Pryor tweeted this out this week. There was a press conference in Pittsburgh. Colbert had a ton of opportunities to say Roethlisberger is the starter in Pittsburgh. He's coming back in 2021, but he had the opportunity to say it, never did. Quote, as we sit here today, Ben is a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, end quote. I don't know what they're thinking in Pittsburgh. I do know this. They're in not a great cap situation. Ben Roethlisberger is going to be like a $41 million cap hit this year. He says he wants to come back. He doesn't care what he makes. Pittsburgh may have other plans there, and this is a buyer's market for quarterbacks this year. This would be a $19 million cap saving, so it certainly helped Pittsburgh, but I don't know as far as the team goes, if that's the route you want to go, given the defense you have on the other side of the field right now. Juju Smith-Schuster is also a free agent. James Conner is a free agent. You have to make decisions at the skill positions there. Farrell, you're an NFL agent here. What's your best gauge on the situation in Pittsburgh? Is this getting to be more and more of a real possibility that Roethlisberger is not the quarterback for Pittsburgh next year? Because for me, I'm still betting that it's going to happen. Not sure how safe that bet is anymore.
I don't either, Balky, because Kevin Colbert is a very, very solid guy. He never talks out of two sides of his face. And when he says something, he means it. And I looked at this string of quotes, and I don't think even he would know what he means. Maybe if I was helping Kevin out, I would say, let's go hire the girl Kelly McEnany that works for Trump. She's out of a job, and we let her handle the press for you. And if I'm working for Ben Roethlisberger, like Ryan Tollner is his longtime agent, I'm going to call and I'm going to say, explain to me like I'm 6 years old what you just said. But I think Toner has already presented to Colbert the fact that Ben is willing to massage that contract, extend that contract, make it less of a cap hit. You must get creative. You must create space to service all these players in Pittsburgh that you can keep. And keeping it together is the big deal. They got to do it around down at Tampa, but they're a little more prepared for it. I just don't know, but it is very odd, Balky, and I appreciate you bringing it up because it's the strangest thing I've ever seen come out of this organization and this general manager's mouth.
You don't really normally associate this type of I'm trying to think of the word for it. There's not a lot of clarity there for an organization that's always had it. And
it is.
And I think, and Phil, let me interject real quick here. I think we all search for clarity, maybe not for Pittsburgh, maybe not for fantasy. Well, yes, for fantasy, because Chase Claypool people, Deontay Johnson people, they want to know what's going on, because if they got to go through this Duck Hodges thing again that they went through last year, they don't want to have any part of it.
No, it's not going to. You're not going to get the value for your Deontay Johnson, your Chase Claypool, with anyone with anyone currently on the roster, not named Roethlisberger, but on center.
We have much more to discuss with it's weird because it's a time of the year where we don't expect a whole lot of news to be breaking. We saw a lot of cuts today. We'll probably reference more of those coming up in the latter half of the show. But I do want to get to our guest right now, ladies and gentlemen, because it is HSFF royalty. 2 years ago, he won $200,000 in the RT Sports Fantasy Championship. Last year, $200,000 in the RotoWire Online Championship. This month, put both of those to shame. He won $500,000 as the champion in the 2020-2021 world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge. Please welcome back to the show, Stephen Ranaghan. Stephen, congratulations, my man. And I know you were in celebratory mode Super Bowl night. Has that stopped? Are you still partying? Have you calmed down yet?
Yeah. Hey, how you doing, guys?
Doing good.
Good. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoy the show. I listen a lot, and you guys do a really good job. Really kind of digging deep into the players and the systems and stuff like that. I listen to some of the other shows, on some of the other channels, and it's kind of not the same level. So I just kind of wanted to say that first. I think you guys do a great job. So,
Stephen, you are too kind, my friend. You are way too kind. I know we exchanged a few emails after the conference championship games leading up into the Super Bowl. I know you were very nervous, and it seemed like the nervousness alleviated in a good way. Super Bowl night, it seemed like you had a very good Super Bowl, my friend.
Yeah, it was great. Like you said, I enjoyed some beverages, and I kind of needed that to kind of calm myself down at first. But I think I probably owe some money to your Packers coach there. I know you're a big Packers fan, so for not going for it on fourth down there.
Now you're opening up open wounds here, Stephen. Like I'm praising you, telling you what a great guy you are, and then you're telling me how my Packers are so close to the big game. That's okay. I'm still happy for you because this has been an incredible run for you that you've been on, and we'll get into more of that. So, but before we get to that, when you're talking about, I know you submitted, it wasn't just one lineup for you in the playoff challenge. I know you submitted several lineups, and I want to kind of get your philosophy, the one that won the whole thing, the one that took down the $500,000. I want to kind of get your philosophy on how you built that one, because the reaction I saw on Twitter and from some other high-stakes players are like, oh, my God, I guess I don't have to be crazy town banana pants with these picks. I don't have to pick all these, high ceiling, low floor guys. I can go with a pretty strong lineup here and win the whole thing, which is what you did.
Yep. Yeah. It's so I definitely, I'll be honest. I really liked the two quarterbacks I liked were, unfortunately Lamar Jackson and Brady. I was really high on, and I know I've been on, your RotoViz show, some other shows, and I've actually said, I stay away from Brady, and I got to say it, before I get into some of the lineup construction. I mean, I was in awe, at what he did, going to a brand new team, with a really short off season. It was amazing, really. I'm 100% honesty, and I know a lot of people, that know me. I've sort of been, not heaping too much praise on him. Mainly in the fantasy, the fantasy realm. But yeah, I mean, as far as that lineup goes, I tried to characterize what the playoffs were going to be, and I kind of didn't like the running back. It was kind of the opposite of what last year, and this contest is really weird, and I always felt like I could win this contest, and I don't know, I'm not like a supremely ultimate super confident person, but I really thought that at some point that I could win that contest, because every time that I was, setting those lineups, I felt like, I really feel like I have just like a knack for this contest. And I know in that lineup, it was interesting because I sort of said, I think I'm going to sort of try to go with a wide receiver centric lineup here, really. And, obviously I did some, strategy around that, right? I mean, some of the, the Kelsey pick was, just sort of, like a boilerplate pick, right? I tried to focus really on the defense and the kicker, because that's what hurt me last year, right? I finished fourth, and it was basically because, everyone had kickers that did really well, and, I think my kicker got like 2 points or something. So I tried to focus on that. Ironically enough, my defense really didn't do that great, but luckily, the rest of the players on that team, I actually had the Washington defense, and I figured they would, kind of do better in that game, although they did pretty well, looking back. But, yeah, I mean, I was really high on Brady just about what they had done kind of the last 3 weeks, kind of watching some of their games, and just I sort of got a feel that they were kind of going to do something, but I wasn't sure they would get that far. I honestly thought they would lose in that NFC Championship game. I also thought that, I know no team has ever made it to play in their home stadium, and I thought, if anybody could do it, he could probably do that, actually get them there. Maybe if they didn't, I'm not sure I even expected them to win either. Yeah, I mean, I guess, that's kind of the way I approached it. I did like Nick Chubb also, because I felt like they were coming on, and I feel like a lot of people just sort of, kind of crap on them, and don't like Mayfield and stuff like that. And, I know Chubb's, kind of one-dimensional too. So, I just liked the way he was running at that time. So I was trying to mix together a lot of sort of like strategy with, the things I was seeing. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I think it makes a lot of sense, David. You can look at your track record to see. In 2022, here in our league in Kentucky, we're going to have our first Super Bowl party, Super Bowl weekend draft and party. I don't know of any draft starting earlier than that. We're going to have some live drafts and a big party. Balky's going to be there. And as usual, he'll be the life of the party. But I would say that if you will commit to come anytime in this upcoming year, that all eyes will be on you, my friend. So, you talked a little bit. From what I understand now, you have Brady and you had Kelsey in the Super Bowl game. Is that correct? Off your winning lineup? Okay, so you had Brady and Kelsey. So we kind of know exactly what you were going through. Who did you spend that evening with, and who enjoyed being there with you as you realized you had locked up that win?
Yeah, it was funny. I mean, I ended up watching the game with my daughter, my son and my wife. It was weird. I'm kind of superstitious, so I like to watch the game. Things are going okay. I like to watch on the same TV. I'll watch in the same area at times. I know that seems very odd, but
no, it sounds just exactly right to me.
I get it. I'm with you, man.
I'm there with you, brother.
Yeah, so it was weird, and the TV kept going out. It was like the connection was weird, and it was like I couldn't even hear the audio, and I was like, I'm not going to leave here. I'm going to just watch it with no sound if I have to. So just ended up like kind of, just watching it, with the family. And, it was a little hectic at times, but luckily, the game script had kind of worked out pretty well by the time it was in the third quarter. I still didn't really feel fully comfortable. I was, kind of bothering my brother for 2 weeks saying, well, this could happen and that could happen and this could happen. And then by the time the third quarter hit, all those, scenarios, I had, spent so much time just, having 2 weeks just sort of figuring out every scenario that could hurt me, basically. So, yeah, it was great. And then, FFPC called me, which I thought that was really awesome. I was like shocked. I saw it come up on my phone, and it just felt like really good to have somebody from the company call me, and that was honestly really a great moment. So it was really great watching it, and yeah, like I said, I look at it more sort of for the achievement of it, just because I've looked up to a lot of these players that are really, really good players, like the Chad, Schroeder, yes, Chad Schroeder, the Kimmer Schleikers and the Henry Muto and some of those guys and girls, but just it's just kind of I just felt really proud of myself, I guess is the best way to say it.
And you should.
And I could. You totally should, and I could tell the listeners too. Like Stephen and I have exchanged emails over the years. Like this wasn't just like a thing that just happened over the last couple of weeks. Talking about how badly you wanted to win an FFPC grand prize because you had done it. Well, I mean, you did it with RT, win the $200,000 there in 2018. You win the $200,000 with RotoWire and FFPC last year, and now you get, not only third six-figure grand prize, third consecutive year where you win a six-figure grand prize. So, Stephen, I know anybody who's downloading this, streaming this, listening live right now, they want to know, what's the secret? I know you're probably going to tell me, well, Balky, it's just one of those things. I was very fortunate. I got lucky. No, you didn't get lucky. You know what's going on with this. You know how to do it. If there's one piece of advice you can offer somebody who's trying to win one of these life-changing grand prize purses, what's the one piece of advice you would give them? Something that's really paid off for you over the last few years.
It's tough because they've all been so different, and I've said this before, but like my focus has changed like over the past, I'd say 5 years. Like I really, I look at a lot of different sources, and I sort of, marry all those sources with like gut feelings and sort of watching, different things that I see. I think with, like that playoff contest, I think it's really just, it's sort of mapping out kind of what you think, what's going to end up in the Super Bowl, right? But it's, really, does the Super Bowl end up, like really what everybody thinks it is? It really doesn't turn out that way. There's always at least one team that ends up in there that nobody, that people could see that happening, but they don't, everybody seems to be on the same teams, right? It's like last year, nobody could have envisioned that, Lamar Jackson could have made it there, right? So, too, a little bit, but there was, I thought the Chiefs could get there too, right? So I think it's just, God, I hate to say this, but it's just like, grinding it out really, like, the information and, looking at lots of different sources. I think some of it is what I do is, and it was strange because at the beginning of the year, I sort of fell into this trap of getting conservative, and I had a really horrible regular season. And I actually went back and looked at some of my drafts, and I had out of like 20 drafts, I had 12 of them that I lost my first round pick. So it's like I'm sitting there. I had some of these teams that were like 8-6 or 7-7. I was like, it's amazing I even got these teams to 8-6 and 7-7. I had Michael Thomas, Barkley, and McCaffrey, I think, on like 13 of them, right? And that's like you're almost done at that point. Yeah,
that's tough to come back from.
It is, and I think some of it is just really like not being afraid to. I think this is a big thing is not being afraid to go against the grain. I think a lot of people, you'll get into a draft and somebody will kind of make fun of your pick. So you want to go home with that perfect draft that looks good on paper, but those drafts never really win, right? The ones that look great on paper. I've had so many of them, I'm like, oh my God, this team is loaded. And it's like the team ends up like 7-7 at the end of the year. I'm like, what the hell happened?
Well, I hope better luck comes your way in 2021's redraft leagues in the FFPC, and I most likely think it will. And I'm looking at some of these receivers. When I put together my playoff team, my Tampa Bay Buck, I wanted to have I look at that and I think I'll fall prey to trying to win too cute. I had to have Antonio Brown was going to be, and I could envision him catching a touchdown in the Super Bowl. And yes, he did, but the injury bug hit there too because he wasn't available. I suppose that in this format, we definitely have to have availability. Durability and availability was the mark of these two players. Both of them were on your team, Stephon Diggs and DK Metcalf. You won't be able to get them both, I don't think, in the redraft leagues. So if you can only draft one of them, or maybe the one you're going to draft first, because I have a hard time separating these two guys for this upcoming season. Which one would it be, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, on this team, it's funny because I think everyone really didn't want to play him. With Ramsey, and I played him. I was shocked that he had such a good game, but I really, it's tough. Sometimes I'll look at a player that I had on some teams and I'll be like, man, I don't want this opportunity to go by where everybody's on him. I want to get this player while the value's low. And I remember thinking that, okay, if I win something, I want to win something with Metcalf, right? So, I mean, I'm not really giving away any secrets here. That guy is ridiculous, right? That guy, Diggs had an awesome year. I just worry about Diggs a little bit with the personality, possibly kind of flying off the handle a little bit. But I mean Metcalf. I mean, he looks like a lineman. I mean, that guy is ridiculous.
We're talking with Stephen Ranaghan here. Yeah. Go ahead, Stephen.
No, go ahead. Yeah, so I would definitely kind of go for. I would go for Metcalf there, but I don't think that's any secret, and I think you'll have to really move him up to get him.
I'm circling him right now.
It's one of those things, too. It's like, that we could spend a whole podcast talking about what Seattle's going to do on offense this year. Where they're firing an offensive coordinator because he doesn't want to run the ball a lot, even though his MO has been running. And, they hired somebody new, you would think, that is going to support Pete Carroll in running the ball. Then we get another report saying Chris Carson's probably not coming back. So I don't know what to think about Seattle right now. But sometimes, especially when you're drafting this early, bet on talent and hope for the opportunity. And we already saw what Metcalf did with the opportunity in 2020. It'd be hard to say that you're going to go wrong with that in the second round this year. Stephen Ranaghan is our guest tonight on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. $500,000 world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge grand prize winner this year. You mentioned Nick Chubb earlier. I want to talk about him here now with you, Stephen. He's another guy in your squad that helped you win the $500,000. Right now he's going ahead of players like Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs. There's a handful of rookies. He's also going in front of not rookies anymore, but J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift are all being drafted after Nick Chubb. Is that the right spot for Chubb right now to be going ahead of those guys? And just to let the listeners know, he's going at the 201 right now on average in FFPC draft. Shout out to Darren Armani from FantasyMojo.com who compiles this ADP data. Would you be leaving Nick Chubb in the draft pool in favor of some of these other guys that are going after him, or is that the right spot at that 1-2 turn?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. It's funny. I saw that list of, I'm not a big Jacobs guy, although he's got, good stats, like advanced stats and things like that. But, some of those advanced stats don't really work out on the field, right? One year they could be great, and then they sort of drop, in yards after first contact and all that, right? That stuff. So, I think I love Aaron Jones. I mean, Aaron Jones, he's been on two of my teams. I mean, I just don't get what they're doing. I don't get what the Packers are doing with him because that guy is, man, I think he's just so talented. And I'm almost looking, and I don't want this to happen to your Packers, Eric, but, I would like to see him somewhere where, where they really feature him. They must know something. I know he's been a little injury prone too, but I'd love to see him in like a feature role just to see what he could do. He seems like he's such a great kid too. Anytime I've ever seen him interviewed, he just seems like such a good guy too. So, I like him, and I do like Eckler. I mean, that offense. Chubb to me seems like somebody who could get injured. I kind of get that feeling. But obviously if he stays healthy, I mean the numbers he's putting up, it's better than any running back in the league, and he's obviously in a great system too. So.
Speaking of great systems, Steve, the Travis Kelce has paid dividends for you throughout his career, and you're going to have to spend a first-round pick in the FFPC to get him. Surprisingly, a player that I got in the fifth round last year, that everybody got in the fifth round, Darren Waller is a first-round pick too, and in some situations, Kittle may have the same as a first-round ADP. Are you willing to commit a first-round draft pick to a tight end when we gather in August and or when we gather in September to draft in Las Vegas?
Yeah, I probably would. I mean, especially in this format with that tight end format. It's kind of weird. I don't like doing my drafts that way because I've noticed over the years that I just, with my style, I don't seem to come out with like what I like, right? And some people can do it fine, right? Based on everyone has their own styles, right? And they can all win leagues and win money, but I almost like when I don't have the chance to get any of those players, whether I pick like fourth or something, and I'm like, all right, good, I didn't have to make that decision. Kelce's obviously, it's got to be as automatic of a pick in this format as you could get, right? Barring any injuries that he may get, right? He seems to have stayed healthy pretty well. He seems to hardly ever get injured, knock on wood. So, I think those are good picks. The tight end position is such a mess. It's so hard to find just anything that can actually provide you with like 150 points, it seems. So, I could definitely see that making sense.
By the way, Stephen Ranaghan, who won the $500,000 in the FFPC Playoff Challenge, I should mention his lineup, too. I know I posted it in the chat room earlier, but the winning lineup, Tom Brady was the quarterback. The running backs, just two of them, Nick Chubb and Alvin Kamara. A lot of wide receivers on this team, six of them. Devontae Adams, A.J. Brown, Marquise Brown, Chase Claypool, Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Travis Kelce was the tight end, Matt Gay at kicker, and the Washington football team as the defense on this squad. So congrats again, Stephen. I want to get to a couple of emails here as time allows. The first one, Allentown, Pennsylvania. Jim writes, hello, Stephen. How high would you consider Justin Jefferson in FFPC drafts this year? Is he a back end of the first-round player? Congrats, man. That is Jim in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Right now, Justin Jefferson in FFPC best ball drafts is going as the wide receiver 6, but he is not going until the back end of the second round at the 211 spot. So, Stephen, your thoughts on this guy who really set the fantasy world on fire last year as a rookie, broke some pretty long-standing rookie wide receiver records, and he looks to continue down that path here in 2021. How do you feel about Justin Jefferson at the back end of the second round this year?
Yeah. First of all, thank you to that email, that email participant for the congratulations. I appreciate that. That seems a little early to me for him, but he looks like, he's going to be unbelievable. So, it's not, I think it's just, whatever your style is, right? If you think, that you like, like him and you're probably going to have to move up, to get him. That seems a little high to me. But, who really knows? It'd be interesting to see who the quarterback is there too, though. I heard you talking earlier in the show. So it's like there's so many QB changes. You just don't really know, sort of, what's going to happen. Some of these receivers are going to fall into like gold mine situations,
I would like to get into some more emails here with you, Stephen, but for time's sake, I want to move on here. And sure. Farrell, I know you have a question about we alluded to it at the top of the program, the big NFL trade that went down this week. I'll let you ask Stephen about that.
Yeah, we're talking Carson Wentz, and I believe we could elevate all the Colts. What do you think about Carson, and just any fantasy perspective you would have on any of the Indianapolis Colts, and what you can where you think they'll be headed in this draft?
Sure. Yeah. It's funny, around here I kind of mentioned to some people I really thought that the Patriots probably should have looked at him. I took him in drafts this year. He absolutely killed me. But in doing this playoff challenge, I sort of learned a lesson in, like, taking somebody like Brady, it's really somebody that I don't take. So I learned a lesson, and you really can't think that way, right? You gotta, if somebody burns you one year, you still, it's like, you still got to look at it.
Don't hold a grudge, Steve.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I'm learning that, as we go here. So I think, I think he'll do really well there. The line's awesome there. They got good receivers. Even some of those guys like Zach Pascal, they got good tight ends. I think Reich, has a, he has got a good knack for kind of keeping, sort of the, the environment right and all that, and obviously being a great quarterback coach. I think he'll be very serviceable, as a QB. That's just my opinion on that one.
Steven, I know I should probably get sick of asking you this question, but I don't, because you keep winning these massive grand prizes, and I keep waiting for you to say, oh yeah, Balky, I'm going to take this $500,000, I'm going to buy my own island somewhere, I'm going to do all my drafts from there, it's going to be great, nothing but umbrella drinks and sunshine for me 365 days of the year. What are your plans for the $500,000 you won with the FFPC this year, my friend?
Tell him it's none of your business, Steve. It's none of his business. Tell him it's none of his business. Okay.
Yeah, you feel free to, if it's something, you want to keep to yourself, feel free to keep it to yourself and make something up. I just want a cool answer.
No. Yeah, I was thinking about buying a bunch of GameStop stock. No, just kidding. No, I know my daughter wanted like a makeup kit, so I definitely want to get that for her. She wants like 5 or 10 makeup kits, a bunch of different kinds.
She'll be flying to Paris to pick these makeup kits up. Is that what's happening here? She's going.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's going right to the fashion centers to get the makeup. Okay.
And I know my son, he wants like a new like gaming PC or something. But I was kind of joking back and forth with Chris. She's been great, just helping, different players through all this, like signing up. She's been awesome. She kind of kids around. She goes, so are you buying like a boat or like, she's like, or a big truck, she's like, I carry like 9 and 10 dogs, in my truck, and it's like, honestly, like I don't know what's wrong with me, but I was like, just the only thing I could think of was like a car. So I think I might upgrade my car. That's really the, like, sincere honesty. That's the only thing I've really thought of.
So what are you thinking about upgrading it to, Steven? Like what are we talking about? Bugatti, Maserati, something like that, or what are you thinking?
I've always liked that Range Rover HSE. So
there
my
you go.
Like that.
All right.
Yep.
Good for you, man.
That has a nice look for you. Balky, I was thinking that Steven was going to say he was going to buy 9.5 Bitcoins. That was going to be the answer that I was expecting. But hey,
hold on. Breaking news, Farrell. As of 2 minutes ago, he can only afford 8.5 Bitcoin with $500,000.
There you go. See, you better act quickly. Get off the phone and get in there and get those Bitcoins. We're going to get to see you face to face, Steve. When we do, there will be some players that we'll see drafters reaching too far on. Perhaps as great a player as he is, Jefferson in Minnesota still has to share the airways with Adam Thielen, so that might be one that people would be drafting too high on. Can you think of a player that will be a bargain, that you can see slipping more than he should, that you can't wait to draft in the double-digit rounds, that will help insure you against some of that bad injury luck that plagued you last year and deliver big returns for a small investment?
Yeah, I'd say I'm trying to think. And this one I'm not too sure about, but just because I watch him play quite a bit, and it's really a kind of hit or miss. But I do like Damian Harris. I don't like that he doesn't catch the ball, but I feel like there's something there with him. I'm just not not fully sure that there's like a breakout there. But the problem is with with the Patriots around here, they don't really or the way their offense used to be. They don't really feature one running back, right? But that was, I think, more of a product of Brady always, wanting that outlet, kind of like he was doing, throwing the ball to Fournette, in these different games. I think it depends on the quarterback, right? So
right.
That's one guy I would say.
Very good.
2 straight weeks, Farrell, that we get Damian Harris comments as far as sleepers for next year. Might be something to think about here when you consider he's running back 35 in the 9th round of FFPC best balls right now. Very, very affordable. I know it's early, Stephen, but a guy that you're avoiding right now in drafts early on, a guy that if you were drafting at this point in February that would not find his way onto your roster?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one that I see early that, I'm not into really at all is David Montgomery. And he looked great, but, if you look at the schedule he had last year, towards that, he just beat up on these awful run defense. I think they were all 26th or worst. He did look good, but, there's a little bit of, kind of who you're running against, right, that makes you look that much better. And I'm just not a fan. I don't think the offense is that great, but, that's somebody that I just kind of won't have. Maybe that'll change my mind, over the next year or so, but it's just, I don't want to get caught up in that recency bias with him.
Yes, definitely beware recency bias. Beware of the career year. Montgomery is you might be guilty of both if you're drafting him where he's currently going. Now, right now he's running back 21, which doesn't strike me as a huge price. He's going currently on average at the end of the 3rd round, the 312, right behind Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Najee Harris, and then right ahead of Travis Etienne and Kareem Hunt. So I get it. It seems like people aren't going gaga for David Montgomery right now. But, man, if that picks up and the spike happens for Montgomery, you might want to be looking elsewhere. We never look elsewhere when we're going for premium fantasy content than Stephen Ranaghan, who has now pocketed 3 separate 6-figure grand prizes over the last 3 years, $500,000 alone this past year. Stephen, what a treat it is to talk to you about fantasy football, talk to you about your latest winnings. I would say, hey, maybe we'll talk again soon down the road, but quite frankly, we'll probably be doing this thing about a year from now, talking about your latest $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 victory. I can't wait to do that again, and I hope you enjoy your new vehicle, your daughter enjoys her makeup kit, and your son enjoys gaming, man, because you guys deserve it. Thank you so much for popping on tonight.
Thanks a lot, Eric. Thanks a lot, Farrell. It's been great. You guys are an awesome company, and I don't just say that, just to say it. It's, you guys just, the customer relations, everything, it's awesome. I really mean that, so I really appreciate it.
Stephen, we really appreciate you saying that, too. Yeah, for sure. Be good, and enjoy your weekend, dude.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Stephen Ranaghan, ladies and gentlemen, the world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge $500,000 grand prize winner. Pretty incredible stuff. And it's so funny, Farrell, as we look back on this Ranaghan interview, I remember exchanging emails with him a year or two ago, and he wins the $200,000 in these other competitions, and he's like, boy, I really want to win yours, though. I really want to win FFPC. And I was thinking to myself, dude, come on, you already won $400,000. Why do you want to win another, it's just to win one is insane. And then we see, guys like Abib Agbatova winning back-to-back Football Guys Players Championships, and Ranaghan wins this one. What an incredible year it was for fantasy football. And Ranaghan, certainly, we talk about Agbatova winning back-to-back, but I think what Ranaghan's done 3 straight years, this is incredible stuff, man.
It is incredible stuff, and these guys are the top in their business. And they're great competitors. They see one mountain, they climb it. They want to climb the next mountain. Good for them. I would love a chance to beat them. And guess what? Just pick the best player on each team that's available. That's a good strategy. Yeah.
So as we pick through this, one of the things that stood out to me is. I think, and I'm guilty of this too, once we find an analyst we really like, once we find a pundit out there that we really appreciate, whether it's the way they deliver the message, whether it's the message itself, we tend to glob onto that, right? We tend to just let their words hang on a little bit more than we should, or than is worthy, than it's worthy of. And Steven said, like, look, I listen to a ton of podcasts. I listen to a ton of people on, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. I read a lot of stuff on the internet, and I try to marry. He said the word marry. He tries to marry those ideas with his own gut feelings and the eye test for himself. And I mean it. I guess that seems obvious, but I think sometimes, we can tend to fall into a trap of listening to one voice too much, and I think that's something he's been able to avoid over the last 3 years.
That was brilliant how he mentioned the personalities of the players, which shows that he's not only watching football, that he's not only watching Red Zone, that he's watching the interviews, that he's watching the press conference, that he's judging people on how genuine they are and how they represent themselves. And Stephon Diggs, everything went right. I liked what he said about that. Everything went right for Stephon Diggs this year. Next year, maybe that's not the case. Metcalf did his share of acting out on the sidelines too, but volatile players that know how to keep their passion contained show maturity, and those are the players that you can count on. And I think that's what anyone that can identify that, it looks like he's a complete player. In other words, he's thinking, living, and being with football all the time. So there's a lot that goes into him picking these 10 players to compete in that contest, or 12 players.
12, yeah, exactly, this year. So the one other thing I wanted to bring up, and this is something that I struggled with, maybe 10, 15 years ago. I feel like I've gotten better at it. I'm still not all the way there. This idea of not holding grudges, as you put it tonight. So many fantasy players, I play in some of these local leagues, basement leagues or whatever in Northeast Wisconsin, and some of these guys, they get burned by a player. I'll never draft him again. There's no way I'm ever having him on my team again. And, every player has his price. I can say, well, this guy's off my board. Well, at a certain point, he's on it. And I think it's important to understand that we play fantasy football, and it's 16 weeks out of a season that we count the stats. That's not a huge sample size. And so for a guy to have a rough year, well, that's 16 games. I mean, what's to say that he's going to continue to have rough years after that? And there's not a lot of statistical analysis out there to say that once a guy burns you, he's going to continue to burn you. And the other thing, too,
examples of that this year. Corey Davis was a perfect example.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, anybody. How many people have we already had on, Farrell, on this show? Kern Reeve, who's in the chat right now, drafted him as the last pick in the Pros versus Joes competition, and they ended up winning the whole thing by a landslide. And Corey Davis was a huge part of that. And I think the other thing I'll just point out before I'll try to get to an email here tonight, he goes against the grain. There are so many times where people, and I commission a ton of drafts online, I see it, people making fun of other people's picks. And, that's cool, but if you're going to do that, you got to be prepared to eat the crow. And there's a lot of people out there who have made fun of picks off guys who ended up winning the whole thing, winning their league or winning a 5-figure or 6-figure grand prize. And I think Ranaghan understands, look, no, you don't win prizes based on your draft. You win prizes based on your season-long performance. And if he gets made fun of for a couple minutes in the draft, hey, no sweat. He's already won the better part of $1 million over the last 3 years doing his own thing. And I think that's the other thing to keep in mind. ADP is a good guide. It shouldn't. Well, ADP is a good. I'm trying to think of the best analogy here. It is a good guide, but you certainly don't. It's not always the quickest path to fantasy goodness.
No, Two-Packer says it's best. Farrell, if you draft by ADP, average draft position, you'll have an average team.
That's right. Exactly right. Perfect. Could not have said it better than myself than the mascot of the show. And Ranaghan has had nothing. But, he's had some dogs, but he's also had 3 teams that have won $200,000, $200,000, and $500,000. So good on him for sure. Farrell, I know we're up against it. Let's do one email tonight, and we'll save the rest for next week. This is going to come from Bill No, I don't want to go to Bill. Bill will do your email next week. Let's go to Ryan. in Pennsauken, New Jersey. Never been there. It seems likely that Allen Robinson won't be in Chicago, so how do I handle him in drafts? Is he going too high or too low right now? Love your podcast. That is Ryan in Pennsauken, New Jersey. Okay, so the Allen Robinson thing. I've waxed poetic on Allen Robinson on this podcast, on my other podcast, for years. I always loved the guy, and it seems like he's always been a prisoner of quarterback play. He gets some bad Blake Bortles years in Jacksonville, and then he goes down to Chicago. He gets the Nick Foles and Mitchell Trubisky experience. He is a candidate to be franchised and traded. I don't know if he will play in Chicago this year, but I feel like this right now. If you look at where Allen Robinson is being drafted in FFPC best balls, he's going at wide receiver 11 at the end of the third round, Farrell. I feel like that's based on what he did last year. He finished as wide receiver 13 last year. This is a guy that I think you're getting a pretty good deal on, because if he leaves Chicago, probably going to be for a much better fantasy situation.
I would think so. And he has what I would share a quality with another receiver in the NFL, junior to Robinson, is Terry McLaurin. They seem to succeed no matter who's at quarterback. So there, you've already laid down that template. McLaurin's going to get stuck with whatever the Redskins bring in, but Robinson's situation would improve. And even with the Chicago Bears season this year, he had 3 games he caught 10 passes. 1 game he caught 9 passes. 100 plus catches, 6 touchdowns for an underperforming team with an underperforming quarterback. You shouldn't hesitate on drafting Allen Robinson, and actually you should probably move him up your board. I think right now in the drafts I've been in, he's going a little higher than that, and he should.
Allen Robinson, just looking at this right now, he is going right behind Calvin Ridley and A.J. Brown, and Keenan Allen, and then right ahead of Mike Evans and Julio Jones. So that, I think I'm with you, Farrell. I think you got to bump him up a little bit more, given where he could end up. I lied. Last question of the night comes from the chat room. Wasp Guy, Hudson Kern Reed, the defending Pros versus Joe's overall co-champ, which I'll get to that in a second. He wants to know where we think Deshaun Watson is going to end up. This is interesting, too, because we've seen Carson Wentz traded. We've seen Matthew Stafford traded. Jared Goff traded. The quarterback musical chairs has already begun, yet Deshaun Watson does not have a home. Farrell, do you have a good feel? I know you got some Texans sources. You have a good feel on where Deshaun Watson is going to end up? And don't say Green Bay, because that's just going to muddle the waters even more.
I don't, and I couldn't do that to you, Balky. I couldn't ruin things for you like that. But I will tell you this.
Thank you.
I think Deshaun Watson will be a Houston Texan. I think Deshaun Watson will come to peace with the organization. I think eventually they will all come to some type of thinking. If he does not report to camp, it'll be a crime in the NFL, and we're going to have a players union, a commissioner, and a lot of other people that get involved in trying to figure this situation out and make it work. But despite all the words that are being said, I would say the people that are saying the most words don't know, and the people that know aren't saying.
I would say this, too. We're still in February. There's a long way off before training camp and anything like that, preseason, and when the regular season starts. I think cooler heads will prevail. Not to be boring here, but I guess I would lean toward – I don't think I feel as strongly as you do, but I do think he's going to be in Houston next year. If he doesn't, the 3 teams I have heard most connected to him are the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Broncos. I would say probably Miami at that point if he doesn't go into stay in Houston. But I think you're right. I think he stays in Houston. I think they find a way to mend the fences and go forward there. What about J.J. Watt, Farrell? What's the percentage chance he comes to my Green Bay Packers?
I don't know, but the kind of guy he is, every organization should want him. So I would think that Green Bay could be a natural landing spot for him. I picture a warm weather team with a very temperate tax climate in J.J. Watt's future.
Interesting. Okay. So that narrows it down a little bit there. We'll see what happens with J.J. Watt going forward. Certainly going to maybe shift the balance of power in the NFL. Maybe not. We'll see where he goes Farrell, you always shift the balance of power in fantasy football content towards the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, towards the FFPC, towards the KFFSC. We obviously will all check out KFFSC.com. I know I'm in a couple of leagues there already, just waiting for them to fill so I can get drafting for 2021. We'll always remind everybody, too, to join Farrell's FFPC Classic that he is currently in right now. It is a $250, again, Classic League, number 26816. It's a slow draft. You can take all the time in the world, well, until the clock expires, making your picks and competing against Farrell. Certainly a pleasure talking fantasy football with you once again. I look forward to doing this. Spoiler alert, we're going to do the show on Thursday next week, not Friday, and we'll talk more about that at the end of the show tonight. But, Farrell, thanks so much. We'll talk to you on Thursday, dude.
See you then, buddy.
Farrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, follow him on Twitter at @JFarrellElliott. Check out the Kentucky Fantasy Football Championship at KFFSC.com, and check it out on Twitter at KFFSC. All right, so big thanks to Stephen Ranaghan for popping aboard tonight, talking about his $500,000 FFPC Playoff Challenge $500,000 winner. I always like talking to that dude. I want to thank Farrell Elliott, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you. Now, I know I alluded to Kern Reeve being one half of the defending champions of the Pros versus Joes Challenge with the FFPC this year. The other half of that is Biplab Mandel, and it's his birthday today. So happy birthday, Biplab, as he celebrates a birthday today. He and Kern Reeve hopefully will be back to defend their title in the Pros versus Joes competition this upcoming year. I'm going to put this at the end of the show. I don't know if I'm supposed to be advertising this, but anybody who's looking at joining a Football Guys Players Championship League, just be checking the site out, myffpc.com/footballguys. May or may not be some leagues up there now or very shortly posted that you can hop in and figure out when you want to draft this year. Again, I don't know if I'm supposed to be advertising that, but I'll say it right now. Check that out. Might be worth your time. All right, next week, I said it with Farrell. We are not going to do a show on Friday. I have an ice fishing jaunt up north in northeast Wisconsin with my Jackass High School friends. That is what's going on for me next weekend. So we're going to do the show live still on Thursday as opposed to Friday next week. So Thursday at 10/9 Central, we will have the 2021 Football Guys Playoff Challenge #2 champs, Tim Walsh and John Campbell. They won $10,000 playing in that competition. They're going to tell us all about it. Plus, they're longtime FFPC main event players, too. So they're going to talk a little bit about their strategy, how they adjusted it in 2020, how they will continue to adjust it in 2021. That it will complete tonight's show, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for hopping aboard. Remember to register for all those best ball leagues and Dynasty Orphans today at myffpc.com. Farrell is in the 250 Classic Slow, number 26816. And if you're playing in Kentucky, I'm registered for the Combine Classic as well as a $39 best ball there, too. So we'd love to compete against you. Hopefully you can make it happen at KFFSC.com. If you can't, myffpc.com. Always a good alternative. Thanks so much, everybody. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and heard around the world. Balky and Farrell will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
As a reminder, Frederick the Younger does the outro music for the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour currently. Check out all their music at fredericktheyounger.com. Quiet Hollers do the intro music at quiethollers.com. Seen both of them live. They're awesome. Farrell may or may not represent them as their talent agent, but still, really good music, really good bands. Check them out. I have to go check on my kids, make sure they're still alive because I was not interrupted tonight, which is pretty rare. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you again on Thursday.